Okay, so we should be getting started. It should be live streaming now. I'm just going to wait for a bit to check and make sure that the audio is all good. Okay, so we should be good to go. Yeah, let me know in the live chat how your week was, how it's been going. And I said in the description for this live this week, I've been feeling sick, sore throat, a lot of pressure in the head. And in the beginning of the week, I didn't perceive that to mean that I was sick. But just in case, I took precautions and tried not to get anyone else sick just in case I was sick. So I interpreted that differently. And especially with the intensity of last week and this week and what's going on. And I've got some videos that I linked in the description about other people who agree with my interpretation of my experience of what's happening. So we're talking about Ascension. Super exciting. So this is related to spiritual awakening. It's related to the spiritual gifts that we've been talking about. And even before that, we were talking about intergenerational trauma. We're talking about dream interpretation. And those are related because dream interpretation, you're accessing the subconscious mind, and there's this level of interpretation that's involved. Spiritual gifts are an extension of your intuition, and they access that same kind of realm in the subconscious, which has access to this kind of unlimited pool of information, this network that is connected energetically to other people and the world around you. When you have a spiritual awakening, often what happens is you develop spiritual gifts. And the process of ascension, it is happening in a really pronounced way right now. And this is something that has been talked about. If you are familiar with the new heaven and the new earth from Revelation in the Bible, which is what I was familiar with, you will be familiar with some of the signs that are coming up in the world around us. Of course, it doesn't have to be necessarily a scary thing. This can be something that is more gentle and helpful. Hello! It has been a challenging week, but at the same time, I'm happy that I'm getting the opportunity to heal myself. Exciting topic as usual. Awesome. Yes, for me, it was a really challenging week. Thank you, Ravina. Love the hair and makeup. Thank you. Yeah, you can't really tell. The lighting's a bit off, but it's green. My shirt is green, and then my makeup is green as well. Yeah, this is... I was getting really excited and lost track of time. Sorry about not being super on time today, but I got a bit excited because while I was making the material, the presentation slides for this live, I had some realizations that I started to make connections about my life and what's going on right now. And I was like, wow, it was just such a draw jaw-dropping moment. And I realized that, if you're watching and, you're engaging here, that there's this element of soul community. And it's really heartwarming for me to be able to experience that, especially during this time. It looks bluish on camera. Yeah, you're right. It does look bluish. I guess it's a kind of bluey green makeup. But it does stand out enough to actually show up on camera. So, yeah, and Ravina, you had the birthday last week, and I said you should write out, even make yourself a card about all the beautiful things about yourself. And I didn't include it here, but I did write out, do this exercise for me. And what I wrote was something like, as if it's the perspective from someone who really admires you. And I got this sense of awe, standing in, like, really confident and capable, and just, generating this sense of awe and beauty. And so that was a nice moment. It was really just the feeling that I felt with that. Anyhow, it looks very nice. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so what is Ascension? Ascension symptoms. And a lot of the struggle, like whether it's physical symptoms or like there's all these challenging aspects mentally in your situation, a lot of that can be related to these Ascension symptoms. Energy work tips, so part of the Jeffrey Allen course, Duality, that you can get on Mind Valley. I didn't really finish that up last time, so I'm just finishing that up this time. So I'm really continuing on from last time, but I gave it a different title just to tie it in what we were doing before, but then also really talking about what's going on right now. How developing your intuition helps with the Ascension process, and hopefully through these different slides, like that will come together and you can have some insight into that and my personal experiences this week. So feel free to share in the chat how what we're talking about relates to what you're experiencing, because it's really interesting to hear your perspective. And I'm going to put a disclaimer before we begin that all the resources that I'm going to be referencing today are examples of information that people gained through their spiritual gifts. They were channeling messages or gained this information through clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, all of those gifts. And this is a great example of new information that whether you gain through your own psychic gifts or from other people using their gifts, you always set aside that information, put it in its own little quarantine, this experimental phase, and give it some time to see if it resonates with you before you completely accept it. And even if someone else's information is relevant to them, it might not be relevant to you. So I like to think of it letting other people live in their own reality. You get to live in your reality and be the gatekeeper of what information you want to accept. And you don't always want to engage with new information too much, and if it's starting to trigger you or makes you upset or brings up anger, and you can feel yourself providing resistance against it, maybe the mind will show up and start protesting, that isn't true. Just give yourself some space from it. And when you start resisting information really strongly like that, you're already engaging with it. And when you engage with it, even if it seems like you are protecting yourself, by providing a lot of resistance against it, you are making it more real, because you only need to argue with something if there is some reality to it. And if there's no reality to it, why would you argue with it? So this is very much like ignoring someone who is trying to get attention from you. Like, they will make you angry just to get attention, but then when you fall for that trap, it drains your energy. You really want to stay neutral. And so I'm going to talk more about why this is later on. So if this content or any other content is upsetting for you, it's better just to stop watching and just take a break. Because like, some of this can be really challenging to the mind, and so if you find yourself having a hard time with it, it's better just to give yourself some space and distance. Like, don't start arguing with the content, and it's fine to go ahead and soothe and distract your mind with something else. You always really want to go back to a peaceful and neutral state, and only watch something as long as you can stay in that peaceful and neutral state and it's not going to trigger you or cause mental chaos for you. And we're really moving into an area of relative truth. So we're going to be discussing different dimensions and timeline splitting, and truth appears very differently from the perspective of different dimensions and timelines. Reality as a whole is really difficult for a linear mind to accept and comprehend. So these kind of discussions are going to be very difficult if the mind is holding on very tightly to black and white definitions of truth. And even the videos that I reference here in these slides, I don't agree with everything in the videos, and I just put that information aside. I'm like, that's fine. But some of what they say is helpful to me, so I just take what works for me and I don't worry about the rest. So, and if it's making you upset, it's not helpful. That's your basic guidepost there. Okay, so the first video I'm going to reference when we're talking about Ascension is the two-world split and what it will look like by Kerry K. So in all of these slides where I'm taking information from another person's video, I've got the subject at the top, and then the second line there, you can see that's the video name. And I've got Kerry K at the end, so that's the creator name, so by Kerry K. And you will see in the description that there's going to be that name of the video and the link below it. So you should be able to reference all the videos, and I'm going to post the links for the videos afterwards that I haven't put up yet. So we're talking about the two-world split. Really, what is it? It's this polarization of humanity that is driving it. So you've got these two different camps, and this video is from a year ago. So you can look back and think about the dominant themes that were happening around that time, where you've got, this two different paradigms, where there is this camp of people who want to make others conform to their will and their way of doing things. And there's this attitude of this perception is right and others are wrong. And then you've got the other group of people who really value respecting each person's individual sovereignty, respecting others, respecting the self, valuing autonomy and love. And so there's a lot of division that arises from this. So as a reaction to this, you have people who really kind of isolated themselves, being in their own space, creating their own little sanctuary, and their golden bubble of light is what Kerry called it. Creating your own energetic boundaries to avoid getting dragged down by conflict. So conflict has been a really big theme the past couple years. division and isolation, it applies pressure to people to help them develop their own divine consciousness. So it's this highly pressurized situation. We're all very familiar with what's been happening. And it's this really real-time element of us being these diamonds that are formed from, like diamonds are formed from pressurized carbon. So but diamonds are pressurized carbon, which is a really interesting metaphor because we're going to bring up the crystalline light body because we're carbon based and we're becoming a form of diamond in ourselves. So there's this choice point, separation or unity consciousness. So we've talked about this separation consciousness versus unity consciousness in the Divine Union live streams. So the Kerry K, she's channeling information from her spirit guides, who she calls the Galactics. So you've got this difference, light and heavy frequencies. So light, love, peace, and joy versus heavy frequencies, division, fear, and lack. So they trigger and catalyze each other. And eventually the frequencies are so disparate they need to separate. And Earth splits into 4D Earth and 5D Earth. You've got this dimensional split. And in our lives, like maybe we don't really notice it that much. She talks about the solar flash, which triggers planetary ascension. A year ago, I was very anxious and worried about this solar flash and doing a bunch of research around it, and there were people who were prepping because they expected the world to go into this everything to shut down and for it to get really cold, so a lot of sort of things to happen. And I don't know, maybe this happened on a lower timeline, but on the timeline that I'm on, this hasn't happened in the fear-based way that I was anxious and thought that it might happen. Yeah, I had a weekend where I did watch a lot of videos on solar flares or solar flashes and was very anxious about it and then reassured myself and forgot about it. So this is really about alignment with you as your higher self and embodying your higher self. She talks about reconstructing the body into a lighter version where you will look more symmetrical, more like your true form. And this is a really interesting idea. This is something that I've been thinking about because, you know, we live in this holographic universe. We live in a universe or a reality that is a projection of our consciousness at really the most fundamental level. So I watched a lot of Leo Gura's videos on actualized.org. I haven't referenced any within this live, but a lot of his videos really influenced my understanding of reality. So you can do your own deep dive if you're more really interested in that, in the mechanics of how reality is really built. But we're just mentioning this briefly in passing here. So looking younger, more vibrant and vital, but still recognizable, but releasing craving, yearning, longing. Yeah, so she's talking about the frequency of love that cannot hold the frequency of separation at the same time. And you might be able to experience this. You might have moments where you experience like all those old worries and get drawn back into all these like concerns about you and your life and these stories. And also you can probably find these moments where you can experience that frequency of love and you can feel and contrast the difference. Then that's really accessible right now in a way that it really hasn't been before. No longer being limited or controlled. Discovering new capabilities, which we talked about, the spiritual gifts. And she talked about how your body manifests a protection field around you where your healing takes place, and this protects you from any damaging elements from like the solar flare. So, there's a lot of this stuff that at some point probably brought up a lot of fear, but, we're moving out of fear, and, we're moving into a realization of our own power to really create a space of love within ourselves and reflect that peaceful, loving state in the world around us. So here's another video by The Alchemist. So I'm just going to quickly go through these slides as quickly as I can to basically touch on all these points that I'm going to be referencing later. So this is How to Receive Energy Upgrades or Ascension Symptoms by The Alchemist. And her name is Sarah. She has black hair, oftentimes wears black clothes. Not much Ascension symptoms here in this video, but some important points. So Ascension is the conscious participation in our own evolution, and that's her definition for it. It involves a healing journey. Major shifts in the etheric template. We reference the etheric template in the soul anatomy. I know the etheric template was somewhere there in the soul anatomy, so that's familiar. It impacts the entire energy field, and she mentions epigenetics. And this is where the junk DNA is unlocked. Epigenetics is when you've got your genes, and your genes are in this DNA double helix strand, and they are really long strands, and they're within each cell, the nucleus of each cell. So they're wrapped up and packaged, and only the genes are expressed which are unraveled. So we have specific markers that tell the cell which part of the gene to unravel, to replicate, to express into proteins. And this can be influenced by genetics. And this can influence, let's say, tendencies towards addiction, towards alcoholism, towards anxiety, depression, various other issues. And this can show up in ancestral lines. So there's one aspect of that, but there's also the aspect where there's all this DNA which we don't seem to use, which they call junk DNA. But it's possible that this DNA, so-called junk DNA, actually contains information that we can unlock to discover our full human potential. And so there are various movies which play on this idea and concept. So there are these processes of clearing, balancing, transmutation, and activation, which are all present within Ascension. And I recommend, this video is really good to go and watch the video. So when you deepen your level of awareness at first, you can feel worse, right? You become aware of this layer of trauma, of programming, and it can just start to be really evident. And it really painful, right? There is a lot of people who were able to just suppress this and keep it down in past generations. And at this point, they're like, why are so many people depressed? Well, because a lot of this deepening of awareness is happening. Clearing allows receiving upgrades to our energy field, unlocking dormant potentials, dissolving old programming in the mind. A lot of this old programming is where a lot of these blocks come from, and where we want to change our habits, change our patterns, whether that's in our behaviors or our thinking patterns or even our emotional patterns as well. And this can completely transform our lives because it's related to perception. We've got the opening, the energetic field to access more coding sequences and variations in genetic expression. Blockages come from ancestral lines and trauma, and these energetic blocks prevent us from accessing information that's available to us. So, like, that can be related to that genetic information, also related to that intuition, that information that is available to us through our intuition. So a lot of this is stepping into personal power, because some of this coding was for scarcity consciousness and victimization, because, you know, there's been times in the past where humanity had to stay in scarcity consciousness and victimization to survive. There just wasn't the support there to be able to make the kind of changes that we're making now. Okay, so here's another video, learning to vibrate correctly, the difference between frequency and vibration. So frequency is related to how conscious we are. It provides psychic protection, is something that's consistent, and we build it up gradually through doing a lot of inner work. And this is an aspect of spiritual discernment as well. Vibration, it changes moment to moment, and the issue is a lot of our manifestation power comes from our vibration. So, you know, we can be having a bad day and then experiencing not so pleasant things within the day that are a reflection of us not feeling good, because what we're able to experience in our reality is based on the thoughts and emotions that we are currently accessing. So the shadow side to this is that you can end up denying and or ignoring aspects of yourself that make you feel uncomfortable. And this is avoiding really doing your shadow work. So this is called, spiritual bypassing, and can create really negative effects. It can really make people stuck and have this spiral effect. Ultimately, you want to grow, and that growth can take you through some unpleasant parts of your consciousness that you have to integrate within yourself. But that is ultimately going to allow you to grow. So there's this subtle differentiation that happens here, that she's making a distinction. I don't know if everyone uses the words frequency and vibration in the same way that she does here, but just the differentiation and just the awareness of the difference is good to keep in the back of your mind here, because like we're going to continue talking about frequency. I think frequency is the word that's used in the rest of the slides, mostly here, but like there is that difference there. Okay, so this one's called the timeline jump. The timeline jump preparation, the cosmic stop by Kerry K. So I feel like not this week, but the previous week, like I was really feeling this. I can't carry on this way. This is when I was like, I think I have to move and quit my job. I just felt really, really depressed. Like I can't continue on this way, and this is really not good. It's just like so intense. There was this, hopelessness, and it was so rough. It got better. But she's talking about this time right before a timeline jump where you have this cosmic stop, and you can have this very strong sense of anticipation where you have stopped, but the world keeps spinning. It's like you're suspended in animation. You're becoming aware of the unreality of reality. And it shifts you out of the external world and plummets you into your internal world. It feels like everything is falling apart. Like, if you have thoughts about feeling like a failure, that's what I felt. I was like, you know what? None of the effort I put in has been worth it. But what it's doing is deconstructing the programming within us and breaking down this conforming to false templates. You're harmonizing with your soul frequency. And this timeline jump is a quick, radical shift towards that harmonization with your soul frequency. The time just before the jump is the most disconcerting, difficult, and challenging. You perceive that something has gone wrong. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. And it's not that something's going wrong, it's that everything is falling into place. So she references 2012. 2012 was the end of the Mayan calendar, and people predicted that this was the apocalypse, it was the end of the world. People were starting to store up food, to make these shelters underground where they would store up food and get ready for the end of the world. Okay, so yes, it was the end of the world as we know it, and it was really this preparation for what's happening now. And in 2020, that theme came up again. Looks like this is the apocalypse too, right? If you can remember, hearing there were some opinions of people who were really scared, and they're like, I know what's going on, it's the end times. So in 2012, many light workers and star seeds arrived from the future into their past selves, and they came from a higher frequency. So the way that I understood this is that, they already had bodies on Earth, but their future selves came back to the past and inhabited those bodies. So it's like a higher version of themselves just jumped into their bodies, and this is super weird, super strange, doesn't make a lot of sense, but if the idea is helpful to you, that's what matters, right? A lot of these things are difficult to understand, so we're describing them and see if they make sense to us. So it felt for them. So all of a sudden, they're living their lives, and then all of a sudden, these people have these really much higher level consciousnesses. It's their own consciousness, but it's just really evolved. So it's almost like they skipped this really long period of evolution in terms of their soul or their consciousness. So it feels like a downgrade, feels like something has gone very wrong. You can feel lost and anxious. And the purpose of this was to elevate consciousness and allow humanity to ascend faster. So basically stepping towards your future self. And as a result of that, you can start to feel, if we go towards the present day where we're experiencing these timeline jumps, what they can do is, if this is something that you experienced, any time in between 2012 and the present, that if you felt alone, alienated, isolated, felt uncomfortable in your body, wanted to leave the planet, that what these timeline jumps are doing, they're bringing you closer to your true self, to your aligning with your true soul frequency, and you can start to feel home again, because there was really nothing that you could try and do different things to make yourself feel better, but feeling this sense of hopelessness because none of it works, right? Yeah, maybe there's some things you can do, to make yourself feel better, but maybe none of it really satisfied that urge. Like, you don't even know what's missing because your conscious mind is not on board with what's happening. And sometimes it has to work out that way. So I was making these slides today, and I was thinking about this, and I realized, okay, so I went through severe clinical depression, and I was diagnosed in January 2013, but I had my first depressive episode where my body completely shut down. It was late winter, so it would have been February 2012. So we're in the 2012. I had no idea why for years, and I was trying to figure out different reasons why. And this took years. Like, it was such a brutal, slow process because, like, I was wrecked. And I think I've told this story before. But yeah, it really took a long time, and I was just went through this like huge, I was Christian, I went through this big disillusionment with Christianity, isolated myself from my friends. I was having all these identity crises, just doing tons of research just to like try and stay sane. Like, and of course my body was tired and exhausted. Like, it affected me physically, emotionally, mentally. Really took a huge toll on me. It took a toll on my family too, because I was confused, and they were even more confused, and they were trying to help, but they weren't helpful. So, oh my gosh, I've never identified with, I've heard of this description, of these starseeds and light workers who came in 2012, but I never identified myself within this group. And today I realized, you know what? There's an explanation for what's been happening in my life since then. It's so crazy. Just thinking about it, that, there's this bigger purpose to our lives that we don't really see until the end of it. Like, after we've gone through the struggle and the pain, we can start to make more sense of what's going on. Like, why are we having trouble fitting in with what, the paradigm of what we're supposed to live like? But maybe we're not here to do that. Maybe we're here to break paradigms and shatter them in this really, like, huge way. So true and so relatable. Every time I've made any progress spiritually, something horrible has happened before that. It is very necessary, though, for us to grow. Oh my goodness. Oh. Like, that level of pain, it really does propel you forward, because it's a method of survival, right? A lot of our programming is based on survival, but if you can't use that to adapt to your life, if it's not working for you, you've got to figure something else out. That's the thing. It's just so easy to get stuck in, the trappings of what life is supposed to look like, that for us to access something higher, that it's so hard for the mind to even understand or comprehend, that you need that push. So yeah, it's so incredibly painful. And having that memory of what you've had to go through, that's hard. But then there's the other side of it, where you on the other side of that pain, after you've gone through that growth and made all that change and just completely transformed your life, that you has a very different perspective. You know, like your higher self has a very different perspective. You are bridging that gap. Yeah, so I've got another video that I found that talks directly about the symptoms that I've been feeling this week and interprets them as Ascension symptoms. So this video is Ascension Symptoms and Gifts Coming In by Honey C. Golden. I've really been enjoying a lot of her videos lately. So she mentions these symptoms: feeling sick, scratchy throat, floaty head, headaches. Lots of people experiencing this lately. She mentions the solar flash in March or April 2023. And so this particular video is from December 5th. So that was 4 days ago. Very recently. So in the information that she channeled, this solar flash was only going to be 1 day, and a lot of people would be would be out of commission for a week or longer. They would just lay in bed, drink water, go to the bathroom. But we had a timeline jump, so this solar flash was spread out and was more gentle. What's going to happen changes from moment to moment, and as soon as you get a timeline jump or something similar, that changes predictions for the future. And we get timeline jumps by elevating our consciousness and connecting to a higher frequency. And that propels us forward into the timeline jump. Yeah, so like we mentioned in the previous slide, you raise your frequency by raising your awareness, doing healing work, reintegrating your shadow, doing shadow work. And so so this in combination, like with the past slide that we had, I was realizing, wow, I've been doing this kind of work for 10 years now. And over that time, like no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get into a relationship. And I thought that something was wrong with me. I did have a case where I met this guy just like twice in person. We just like went mountain biking, and we went to the beach the next time. And then I spent 6 months healing and purging the emotional wounds and distortion that he triggered in me. Like he wasn't nasty, didn't say anything mean. Like there was nothing that happened between us that, was negative. His presence, meeting me, triggered all this stuff inside of me. So yeah, it's so interesting because he was someone who didn't fit into mainstream society very well, but I did feel like he did have this beautiful soul. I did not agree with a lot of his life choices. I mean, including the tattoos. Yeah, we had some conversations about that. Nothing wrong with tattoos in general. It was just he had a lot and kept getting more. But I see, like, at the time, of course, it wasn't fun going through this because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting all like the negative parts of a relationship without ever actually having a relationship. But I see this person as a really positive influence in my life because they helped me to grow. And from the perspective I'm in now, yes, I'm thankful for it. Was I thankful at the time? Absolutely not. I wish I hadn't met him. But I was releasing this old relationship template, which was based on attachment and playing out the effects of core wounds. like the second phone call that I had with him, he had this like long monologue about all his childhood trauma. So I can see how like that element, like that, like there I felt attraction to him based on those childhood wounds that reflect each other. Like there's that kind of element and dynamic that was playing out there. But I mean, it's good that there wasn't any, because I was like, you know what, I don't want to actually do anything towards someone else that's hurtful or negative. I want to have, as much as I can, a positive and beneficial impact on other people's lives. You know what, you can go through experiences with people where you're triggered and that triggers you to grow, but you want to do it in a way where you can have good relationships going forward if you ever decide to engage with that person and have a relationship with them in whatever context. Story of my life, so difficult to be in a relationship. Yeah. But what I'm saying here is that you are a spiritual master and you didn't even, well, maybe you knew. But I don't think I really had this level of awareness where you can do so much work, so much deep, intense work when you're not in a relationship. A relationship can just pull you back into all these stories and all these paradigms that keep you really, really limited. And, you know, up to this point, I was upset. I was so upset that I haven't been in a relationship and I'm missing out. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm so thankful that I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing now, and I have this awareness. And it's a beautiful world that we're moving into. Oh, I got my tissues ready. I'm only interested in people I can't see the last word. I'm only interested in people I can't love. They are providing something for you in that moment. That's okay. Like, there's, like, it's so intricate how our dynamics with people happen. Yeah, and I like that whole dynamic that I described there. I was like, man, why am I dealing with this? But you know, there's something beautiful that can come out of it, and these kind of situations, they can really help us grow in really incredible ways. Like, you know, I've heard people say, whenever we come into a body on Earth, before we make all the decisions about what's going to happen, we make all of these contracts. So a lot of things are decided ahead of time. Now, this is not something very nice to think about when you are in the midst of dealing with trauma. You do not want to think about that. Like, I chose this. But after you've worked through it, you can look back and start to understand the connections and patterns. When you're in the midst of it, if you try to have that perspective, sometimes just a lot of shame and just guilt gets triggered, and then so it's not a healthy dynamic there within yourself. You gotta like make sure that you're applying spiritual principles in a healthy way, because you know there's ways that you can apply ideas to your life that are detrimental for sure. Gotta have compassion and love for yourself. You gotta start there and end there and just stay there. Yeah, so this old relationship template, like, you don't have to have a relationship with someone to have that being purged from you. You can have people in your life that you're attracted to, that it's really not possible to date them, or for them to, maybe they do have feelings for you, but they're in a situation where they can't express that. Yeah, so I'm looking at my notes and I'm trying to make sense of them in the current context. But I think in relevant to the last one, like since 2012, in my notes I was talking about, like there's all these different things that I went through. There's like a bunch of family issues, intense identity crises. This related more to the last slide. I should have put it there. Lots of issues with my family line came up, especially like those last couple of years. And this healing process just sped up and became so much faster and more intense after I joined that meditation group. It was the Absolutely Everything Pass with Kyle Cease in June 2022. And I just started being able to purge really deep things over a couple days and then just feel back to normal in a week. But sometimes during that purge, I'd be just like, oh my gosh, I'm back where I used to be, and just like, what's wrong with me? And then like a week later, I'm like, I'm okay. Like, it feels so intense that it's like that. I got so sidetracked here. So Ascension symptoms. Okay, so we're back in the present. Ascension symptoms that have been going on. And it's so interesting. Some of us feel it, and some people around us, like, not interested, don't care. Like, coworkers. Yep. I mean, it can be family members too, and friends, yeah. So, you've got this ascension going on, and the harmonics of the universe are changing and gifts are coming in for people, but your brain has to be able to accept the gifts. So I didn't plan, out my channel. I just get the idea of what I should talk about that week. I didn't realize that we were going to be talking about this and this was going to happen, and I'm having realizations and of what all these things mean in my life, and it's like my life is starting to make sense, and I'm feeling a lot more hope for the future and just a lot more comfortable just being in the present. Like, everything's okay. Like, I don't feel like I need to escape. Feeling a lot better. So this causes a lot of pressure in the head where you've got these gifts coming in, but the mind is like, it doesn't have any framework to understand what's going on. I've been feeling that intense pressure in the head so much lately, and it's felt very much very different from a cold. I think the cold, it'll be consistent in the level of pressure. But this, the pressure that I felt in my head this week, it's kind of come in and out. So it almost feels like it's been mimicking a cold, but definitely feels different. And my perception, kind of in my knowing, I'm like, I don't think this is a cold. No one around me got sick. So a lot of programming has to be released during this process. The frequency is rising and pushing out old programming. So this shows up as mucus, inflammation, higher stress levels. I'm getting really bad psoriasis on my hands where the skin is super scratchy, or not super itchy, but it's scaly. It's scaly and red and can get really painful. So I've got used hydrocortisone cream for that, and it clears it up, but it's coming back every day. And it usually shows up when I'm under a lot of stress. So I don't feel like I'm under a lot of stress, but obviously my body's under stress. So Ascension symptoms can be very mild, but it's been a lot more intense lately. So what stands in the way of our spiritual gifts is perception. And these spiritual gifts, they come in at the end of a solar flash. So the solar flash, it's come in. But you can see how the process, it's been slowed down, and we're going through it in a way where it's adapting to our needs. You need to drink a lot of water, make sure you have adequate nutrition and are getting enough minerals, and you are activating other people by just being in their presence. The soul is carrying the body through ascension. And it might be hard if there's a lot of programming that you are having to let go of. Don't push yourself too hard. And be in joy and happiness as much as you can, because that speeds up this learning process. When we're purging stuff, of course, just be present where you are. But when you have that choice and you recognize, oh, I'm kind of getting sucked into this negativity here, and I think I'm going to be conscious and mindful of the videos that I'm watching, because there's some videos that I've watched a lot in the past that maybe, you know what, maybe I'm beyond that are quite negative, but there's this kind of like addictive drama element to them. And you know, I'm like, maybe I'll drop that. I'm burping all the time. Every time I'm transmuting energy, I'm burping my life away. Oh my goodness. So that's so interesting. Like, it's really showing up in different ways for different people, and you're able to recognize and be aware of how that's showing up for you. Because if you're burping, that can be stuff that's coming up from, the solar plexus chakra? Because if like a sore throat would be the throat chakra. What do you think the relevance of burping is? Because Ravina, you said you've been doing that healing for the chakras, so maybe you have some insight onto, you know, what that specifically means for you. For me, you know, that sore throat, throat chakra, that's really about speaking, dealing with that fear of, you know, you're speaking all these woo-woo things and fear that other people are going to judge you and not accept you. I'm feeling that. I feel it a lot. I mean, there's all this judgment towards myself, and of course, like, I project that outwards, right? The headache, like, that's the mental energy. And yeah, I've had a lot of that. Like, I know I've got that really heavy mental energy present within me, so I'm going to be experiencing that. That was a great video. I like that video on Ascension Symptoms by Honey C. Golden. That felt really relieving to me, because I'm like, oh my goodness, it made me feel a lot better. Yes, my solar plexus is very congested, but I also think it's throat, because sometimes the burping is very shallow and not really coming from the diaphragm. Oh, okay, so interesting. Yeah, a lot of us, we're feeling stuff around the throat. And this is something I've been thinking about too, is like, I complain about how my coworkers always talk about video games. Well, what's stopping me from talking about something that I want to talk about? Yeah, I could get a few like weird stares, but if, like, that's the thing, if other people have the freedom to talk about what they want to talk about, like, why don't you? And, you know, people can pass it off as like, oh, whatever, they're kind of strange, but there's nothing really stopping you from discussing, as long as people aren't likely to get too aggressive towards you. Definitely keep yourself safe. But if you feel safe enough to share, then, and I feel like, you know what, I could step up and share, just like be open to share and let go of this anxiety about how people are going to judge me. Because a lot of it is feeling like just this anxiety and fear around that. I see you're alive, Heather and Ravina. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Paul. Unfortunately, I'm busy and will have to check out later. Next week, I should be able to join live. Love and blessings to you both. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for just popping in and saying hi, Paul. Always love your energy and support. And yeah, I can imagine you're probably busy. You've got all your stuff that you're working on too. But yeah, love that and appreciate that support there. Okay, so I have some slides that are a bit of a review from last week because I just want to go over some of the things in them for the next part. Oh my gosh, I have so many slides. If it's really late for you, you can definitely feel free to leave and come back and watch the rest later. I feel bad about, making anyone feel pressured to stay to the end. Because I have a lot of slides today. I didn't continue with the chakra healing. I stopped at the second chakra because I didn't feel a connection with my second chakra, but will continue again. Yeah, that's interesting. Because you mentioned the chakra healing course, I was starting to think like, you know what, I should do something like that too. I joined the Mind Valley trial for 2 weeks. And I ended up not getting the full, because there was a 15-day free trial and I signed up for the year. And I decided, you know what, I don't really need the year, but they do have a course in there on chakra healing. So I was thinking, oh, that would be interesting. I think that, if there's a course that's not resonating for you at the moment, it might resonate for you in the future. Or if because there's lots of different ways that energy work and healing happens. I know with the Jeffrey Allen course on duality that I took, I first took it a while ago, like a couple of years ago. And I didn't continue with it. Like I just started it and then I dropped it. I haven't mentioned or looked at it again since that time. And the thing I struggled with was like that level of focus, and it felt really uncomfortable to do the exercises. And that's the thing. Like there can be some other things, other activities in your life that you do that actually help you to be in a space where you're ready to do that work, to maybe connect to your second chakra more. I'm afraid I don't know enough about the chakras to add anything onto that. But, there can be a lot of different things that, you're just getting that nudge to do something else. And that might be the best thing to do. Yes, it's very beneficial, chakra healing. But I'm a perfectionist, so if I don't feel like I'm doing it perfectly, I quit. That's okay. We're like, you're allowed to do that. It's hard. It can be really challenging. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a judgment too. Like, I should have not quit. But you have to consider too that a lot of the energy is really intense right now, and I played games on my phone to distract myself from the intensity of the energy this week. Like, I totally did that, you know, those unconscious things, because I just needed a bit of a break from it. And it's possible you've done some really good work there, Rafina, and you just need some space and time. But I'll start again because I saw lots of benefits. Yeah, you know, it's possible that you just needed a bit of a break because, and I'm going to talk about this later on in one of the later slides, sometimes we see a lot of progress, but then we kind of get stuck and we just need, because it triggers so much growth that it can really ramp up the intensity, and then there's part of us that can just like lose interest because we need some more time to process what's happening. Okay. I was getting free services from people and got a job, so lots of changes. Yeah. Having a job, or even changing your job, especially when it's a new job, there's a lot of things to adapt to, and it can take a lot of energy too. So that's cool. Like, you can't think of it as, oh, like, oh, I went going backwards because I stopped. There's a lot of things in your life that are all steps that are all moving you forward in a way that all work together that you can't fully see yet. Okay, so we're talking about love and how this higher level information is accessed through love in the body and the heart. And we pull in this high level information through alchemy with the frequency of love. So a lot of what we're talking about is really an alignment with this ascension process. And we talked about how much spiritual energy can you sustain in your being without becoming irritated or distracted. Like we'll talk about later. This is what happens. You know, you get a bunch of spiritual growth and you can sustain more spiritual energy, but then you start getting irritated and distracted. So you are increasing your capacity. Whenever you're doing that kind of healing work, you are increasing your capacity for holding spiritual energy. Yeah, so we're talking about embodying high vibrational cosmic energies. You can't be in fear or negative ego. And that higher energy, as you take more of it on, it's pushing out fear, pain, trauma, incoherence, and like that can bring a lot of this irritability and feeling distracted. Yeah, having to face childhood wounds, past life trauma to develop psychic abilities. And what you're really doing is embodying your higher self in physical form, and it affects your entire being. You can only carry higher frequencies to the degree that you are healed. So some of the things that happen in this process is your worldview changes. There's an importance in being playful and surrendering, making room for the unknown, not getting stuck in dogma, trusting your connection. And these gifts and information exist to help you. Don't hold beliefs lightly and use your own intuition to verify ideas. Okay, so this is the review section on the Jeffrey Allen course on duality that we talked about last week. We talked about the coherent state or coherent energy versus incoherent energy. So it's really like flow state, being really grounded, everything's working together. He has grounding exercises that you can use to integrate your spirit within your body, where you're pouring more spirit into the body. I found this idea really interesting, pouring more spirit into the body. Blocks to connecting to intuition, overthinking, wanting to do it the right way, being in the future, making up hypothetical stories, having an overactive mind, being critical and judgmental. Okay, so this is the new part. So I recommend the course. They usually have a sale, Black Friday sale. So you can either get it there, you can try a free trial. You might actually still be able to do a 15-day free trial, even at the regular price. Just mark it on your calendar, make sure you cancel the subscription before 15 days. And if that's your plan, I would recommend just choosing the monthly option instead of the yearly, because you can try it out. I think this course is quite good. So I don't include like a ton of the information there, but just really what was relevant and interesting to the discussion that we're having here. So all information is energetically available to you. And he talks about how when in energy work, we imagine energetic information as physical things to help us interpret that energy. And he was talking about imagining the Akashic records as a book. So he was simplifying this idea of the Akashic records into something that's like easily relatable, demystifying it. Because I was so excited, like, oh, the Akashic records, and it seems like, oh, such an advanced thing. And it is. But like when you're teaching, you obviously want to make it easier to access. So when you are accessing this information, it's important to develop clarity and avoid being distracted, which, you know, comes up when you've got thoughts about adhering to social norms, being worried about whether you're going to be liked or accepted, and kind of held back by your memories. So all your memories about the day, what you need to do, about your current identity. Like I can feel that. Like I felt that this week, kind of like pulling me back from that space of clarity within myself into kind of this kind of reality or world that kind of stuck to. So the thing with memories is they miss out important information. I think that missing out important memories, I think that's a typo. I should know I did it, but turning down the distraction and noise. And so he used the like image of a light switch or like a dimmable light switch where you turn it down. Or like a soundboard, you turn it down. Focusing the attention to the center of your head, bringing the energy from the external world to the internal world around you. And so like the center of your head, that's the pineal gland or the third eye. You can also move into the higher mind, which is up and back, and aim for that calm, clear, peaceful awareness. So he has a meditation where you do that. And in that space, you gently ask questions. You want to be curious. And okay, so here's the interesting element of the content that he was talking about that really has affected how I perceive like spiritual growth. So a common problem that people have is like falling asleep or spacing out during meditation. This happens a lot when I listen to spiritual videos. I just like I come back to consciousness at the end of it, and it's the end of the video, and I'm like, what happened? So he said that's really bumping up into unconscious energy, and you're clearing energy, and this can get big healing benefits. So it's a positive thing. It's like, oh, like, not like, ugh, I'm falling asleep during this, and I shouldn't be. He mentioned there that you can like see yourself as bumping up against unconscious energy and just like pull yourself back from that. But I usually just lose consciousness. So your awareness is not restricted to the body. And so here he talks about, you know, different ways to exercise your awareness. So projection, moving awareness to it, this would be like moving around in your head. So like you can go behind your eyes, the center of your head, like right into the up and back. And also you could move your awareness to your hand or your foot. I find that's tricky. It's hard. Like my awareness kind of tends to stay in my head, but that's something you can practice. And then there's remote viewing, like observing it from a distance. So like viewing your hand from the center of your head. I find this quite comfortable. And then the psychic reading, bringing the information to you. So this is like watching a movie of your hand or something else on a movie screen. So where you can rotate it, you can rewind the movie. And like it's interesting because he uses these different techniques within the course, and there's like different things that he talks about like with the healing the chakras, about, you know, clearing your reputation. I found that was really interesting. It's like you have this kind of bubble around you, and it's like sticky notes, and other people like stick these sticky notes of their perception of you, and then the more sticky notes on there, it kind of solidifies this reputation of you. But you can actually clear that, so then when people see you, they get this like clear image of you. So it's like this happens a lot with like movie stars. Lots of people have their perceptions kind of projected onto them, and so there's this kind of elevated perception that's really amplified. So here's the thing. Rapid healing brings growth periods. And Ravina, when you mentioned that you stopped working on that course, you know, you couldn't be experiencing that rapid healing where you feel good, you feel great, and then, I don't want to do this right now. And you can misinterpret growth periods as bad and going backwards and giving up, because your mind doesn't think like, oh, I'm going through a growth period, like it's okay. Your mind can interpret this in different ways. Wow, very interesting, this clearing the reputation thing. Yeah, so I'm not really talking about that much here, but like that's a part of the course. So these growth periods, they're a sign of progress. You can feel very grumpy and overwhelmed. And I've felt like this so much, like feeling so grumpy. And yeah, I was probably like clearing a bunch of stuff. So in the growth period, it brings up a lot of unconscious stuff, and you can feel anger, sadness, hopelessness, and grief. And the mind is looking for reasons or stories that aren't necessarily related to exactly why you feel that. So it can give a really inaccurate perception. Relationships can trigger personal growth a lot. Regardless of whether you're actually in a relationship, right? Like just your connection with the person. And you can start blaming them. It can feel self-righteous or good at first, but how you choose to deal with it can cause a lot of damage. So I've been really careful trying not to cause damage with relationships, unless, I mean, there's been a couple cases where I'm like, I'm burning this down. But I was really in a space where I'm like, I never want to engage with this person ever again. Sometimes it's safe enough for you to do that. A lot of the times when it's related to your job, it's not safe, because that can affect your future employment. But there might be some areas where you're like, I definitely want to convey the idea that I do not ever want to be around this person again. But other than that, I've been tried really hard to, whenever I'm feeling this, to not like spew this onto other people. If you remember, or you can go back and watch the video on my repressed man hater. In that video, I'm talking about how I'm projecting like these past wounds onto my coworkers and my boss, the men in my workplace, and it's not their fault. And I felt angry at them, But I recognize, you know what? This is a growth period. It's okay that I feel like this, but I'm not going to take it out on anyone else. And no one even knew. Unless you watched the video. Yeah, so this is about like growing and learning how to move that energy that shows up so it doesn't get stuck in the tissues of your body and cause sickness. And yeah, takes a lot of self-control to know how to deal with this kind of situation. This was the first time that I heard about this growth period, and I think it really helped me. It was one of the things from this course that I've been using all the time. So growth periods can have these big ups and downs and can get sick if you're not clearing the energy. So you really want to reduce analyzing, blaming, negative thoughts, trying to fix other people because you perceive that they're the problem. Like this still happens, comes up for me. And just acknowledge that you're feeling grumpy and having a bad day, even if it really seems like someone else is the problem or the situation is the problem. Just start from like, I'm grumpy and having a bad day. And just give yourself some space. And maybe you are. Maybe there is an issue that you have to deal with. Sometimes there is an issue, but it's exacerbated by this growth period. I think I've made another video about that too. What was it? I forget the name of it. I think it was like this, the thumbnail had this image of a globe on fire. I was very triggered. So you need to have compassion on yourself. Run positive energy to release that stuck energy, like cosmic and earth energy. So cosmic is from the, it goes in through the top of your head, meets the root chakra, like down your back, and comes up the front of your body. And then the earth energy is from the earth into the root chakra and then down. And so then you kind of like drain all that negative energy down that grounding cord. Be patient through the process, and it can be confusing as the mind and ego battle for dominance. And release the mind and ego. Insights often come at the end. You'd like them to come at the beginning, but they come at the end once you work through it. Okay, so the other part that I wanted to mention is his part on getting in contact with spirit guides. Spirit guides can help you plan, or they help plan your lifetime before you come onto Earth and are with you throughout your life. So this is his experience, and this is the information that he got. And they can be advisors or friends watching from backstage or have that kind of energy. So you can feel overwhelmed when you try to over-control your life and misunderstand people and situations. And yeah, establishing this connection can help you have more ease and flow in life. Effortless manifesting, sense that everything will work out, and you develop trust with your guides over time. And they communicate via the different ways that we've talked about before: hearing, sight, thoughts, situations, feelings, signs, numbers, synchronicities. Yeah, so a struggle with this communication is being able to differentiate between your or someone else's negative thoughts and something that's coming from your higher self or from spirit guides. How you tell is your guides are always insightful, kind, and non-judgmental. They don't have an agenda, and they respect your free will and personal choice. And like this sense of urgency, if that's showing up, maybe you want to drop it. And they can be funny, surprising, feel peaceful. It should feel good. If you're feeling off and you're getting information, just set it aside. Maybe close that connection. Okay, so he did a meditation, a guided meditation to help with this. So extending out your crown chakra in all directions, like so, kind of like having a bubble. And notice where there are any points of light relative to your body. And he said, like, that's where your guides are saying hi to you. Saying hi to you. That's another typo. So you can contact your guides via where they are relative to your body, or you can connect with a name or a feeling. You create a column of light in front of you to create this coherent space for them to come to communicate with you. You can ask for them to come into that space, have a conversation, then thank them for talking to you. And then if you don't already have a name, an image, or symbol to contact them, you can ask for one. So these are like a little bit of tools that he uses, or that he's used, that he finds works for him and also for his students that he's been teaching. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. So these are just like extra tools to use to just get that communication started. Okay, so we're on to the last section. So I have my experiences that I'm going to talk about. And then I'm going to reference another video that relates to the next set of experiences. So, in my practice this week, so the first time I was thinking about I should practice this, I was just laying in the dark. And I was like, yeah, I could do this right now. How do I do this? Like, this was my thought process. I was like, oh, I could lay in the dark with the sleep mask that I got. And I didn't actually even get that far to putting on this sleep mask. I was just laying in the dark for this process. So I think I was just really tired and I didn't feel like getting up and getting the sleep mask, but I was just laying in the dark. And so I'm going to describe what I felt. This is not a prescription like what you should do. This is just what I experienced. So I felt energy in the root chakra. So I found that a lot of intense energy in the root chakra can feel like sexual energy, of course. You know, the root chakra, that's where a lot of sexual energy is, and I felt a judgment against that. I released that judgment because sexual energy is life force energy. I'm like, that's okay. You know what? Life force energy helps with this connection. So, and this flowing life force energy throughout the body, like that's something that we mentioned in the notes on one of Gigi Young's videos, that you're increasing this capacity to flow this spiritual energy through the body. So the mind came in and had some judgment, and then I dealt with the judgment, and then it calmed down. And I'm like, oh, what do I do next? And I was like, oh yes, you generate that feeling from the heart. So I was like, I don't know really how to do this, but I felt a calm, neutral state, which is a great place to start. The previous week, I did not have a calm, neutral state most of the week. So it's not a good space to do that. But this week was better. I let that heart space feeling in. Like, I'm just describing like what it felt like. I'm trying to just... So it felt like I was just letting in the positive energy that was already present around me. So it felt like a friend, very soft, loving. It didn't jump out as something really just like in your face. Like, oh, really intense loving energy. It was more gentle, more subtle. Yeah, so, and just some thoughts showed up. So these thoughts that I received, like, this is new information for me that showed up. And this whole process, it felt very much like receiving an idea for a song. So sometimes I like to write out songs, and I often don't really finish the songs. I just have the idea of the initial melody. So it feels very much like that. It feels very much like the process of when I come up with an idea for a video, or like I'll write down the idea for a video, and then I will turn the camera on and I'll start talking. It's very much like that process. And looking back, I'm thinking, oh, like what I've done in creating the videos, that has helped develop this kind of ability, that where it's enhancing intuition, but it's related to opening that channel in terms of thought. Because when you're making a video, like you can't write out a whole script. You're basically going from either memory or information you already know. And oftentimes when I was making videos, like I was learning how to just let information flow through me. And so a lot of the earlier videos, if you look back in my channel, they're heavily edited because there'll be like 30 seconds of just dead space where my mind is blank, because I'm learning how to let that information flow. Man, like the first live stream was stressful too, and it's getting better. Like also, you know, some of the distracting thoughts that show up while I'm live streaming are negative thoughts. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is a very similar process where you're developing that level of focus. Like, if you've done any sports competitions or performances, like I've done dance performances, like piano performances, you know, you will recognize that same sort of thing. Giving a presentation, you've got those intrusive thoughts. So there's lots of different things, you know, that you can do that actually help develop this skill of this focus and this clarity. Okay, so the thought that I received, that neurodivergent people are sensitive to energy. So ADHD, autism. Stimming, I forget whether stimming's related to which one it is related to. I know it's related to being neurodivergent. I can imagine. You're truly doing a great job. Thank you so much, Ravina. Yeah, so I noticed like the people at work do stimming. And I realized like, oh, some of that's like verbal stimming. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know, why are you talking about this stuff that doesn't matter? But they're like kind of processing stuff and trying to like make the mood more lighthearted to make themselves feel more comfortable. But I do notice there's the stimming. Well, there's like different behaviors. Being on the phone can be a way. Playing games in between tasks can be a way. They've got a yo-yo. They've got different little gadgets. They've got like they're actually kind of cool, like the 3D triangle puzzles, and they play with those. We've got a bunch of magnets that people make interesting shapes with. People are always playing with those. So, and video games can be a distraction of choice. Okay, so this is new information. It goes into this quarantine zone, because I don't know if this is true or not. Okay, so connecting to prior knowledge. So 2 of my coworkers said they are neurodivergent. And one of those coworkers said that they think most of the other developers in the office or other programmers in the office are neurodivergent. This is something I didn't know until I asked. It's connecting to my personal experience. So I distract myself when I'm overwhelmed. So, you know, after 2011, I was watching a lot of movies late at night. Like I'd be fine during the day, like just keep going during the day, but at night it kind of like catch up to me. And, present day, I read manga at night to help my mind fall asleep. And it has been a way to deal with like intense energy. I don't want to deal with the energy that I'm feeling, so I'm distracting myself. So, honestly, like I do this with myself too. Okay, so, and here's some processing where I'm making sense of this new information. So, in terms of talking about like connecting to your guides, connecting with your psychic gifts, information is always there for us to listen to, but we tend to avoid it, especially if we're sensitive to it. For example, avoiding shadow work because it's uncomfortable. You know what? It's okay. Like you can only handle so much. And, if you're sensitive to this kind of energy, you may have lived your entire life developing protective mechanisms against that energetic sensitivity. And if you're an empath and you take in a lot of other people's energy, like you know exactly like what I'm trying to get at here. Because that energetic sensitivity, it can really interfere with your life. Yeah, and you can have this resistance against opening that energetic barrier. Okay, so I got some new information. I am in this job I'm currently in to help my coworkers. My presence there and interaction with them helps them at an energetic level. So they're not interested mostly in, watching my videos or coming to my live stream or discussing this information. But, this could be part of my work here, lifting up and supporting people who are energetically sensitive. And, these can be people who have faced a lot of discrimination because of this. And, the world we live in interprets this a certain way. And I was falling for this same trap of judgment because I wasn't connecting to my higher self. Okay, so a conclusion I can take from this is I am in the right place at the right time. So, connecting with this spiritual advice helps me with misunderstanding and judgment that I was experiencing, which is keeping me from my own spiritual growth. It helps me feel a little bit better about judgment against myself. Like, why am I not achieving more in my life? You know what? You're right where you are. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing, and you're doing amazing work. Right? Like this can be a message that comes through to you in a very specific way. And that's why your spiritual gifts, they're an extension of your own intuition, and developing that connection just gives you that level of validation that you might not be able to get anywhere else. Do my coworkers know about my channel though? Like I was very hesitant. One of them does, and just saw the channel was like, you're into metaphysics, that's cool. And I don't think they watched a single video. Maybe. I don't think so though. My impression is that they don't. There's one person who genuinely seemed interested, but they were not part of the developers or programmers. So they're not really into the video games. They're more into like the eating healthy and the exercise and being outdoors. So they're more in alignment with what I like to do. And I felt a lot more freedom there to talk about my interest with them. I was very anxious about my coworkers knowing about my channel, but I think now I'm kind of like, it's okay. Although having my coworkers on a live, I would feel like that would be a lot of pressure because like the kind of stuff we're talking about would not be acceptable. Yeah. I mean, like, you can have a lot of discomfort, like, talking about certain things with people. And like, oh, yeah. Maybe there's openness. Especially the one I had a crush on, yeah. Well, a lot of videos were around that subject. Yeah. We don't want him to find your channel. I don't know if he'd even be interested in watching. That's the thing, right? Like, my coworkers don't know, or the coworker that knew about my channel didn't know what the video was actually about. They're just like, oh, it's about metaphysics. But I'm so glad you talked about it. Those videos were very helpful. Awesome. Yeah. There was definitely a progression. And we'll see what comes up next. There was such a like level of processing going on in creating those videos, and for me it's interesting going back. And like those videos, they're almost like a portal into that time space where like I can understand like what I was thinking and feeling at the time, because otherwise like it's hard to remember. Because like, you know, we're shifting so rapidly, and if you don't have that comparison, you can't see that. Okay. Yeah, it's been long. I still have a bit left to go. Shouldn't be more than 15 minutes if you want to stay. If you want to leave, you're definitely free to leave. So this was a video that I saw and I was hesitant to watch because of what I'd heard about this idea of NPCs, where it's okay for people to experience really awful things because they're just NPCs. And I was like, that's not okay. It's not okay. But this video actually opened and expanded me up quite a bit, and is relevant to like the next segment of my personal experience. So non-player characters. So she was talking about like, how do you know if someone has connection to God's source? It's inspiration. They can feel inspiration. Like, not just regurgitating whatever someone else is telling them to do or believe or... So there's lots of people who are not connected, and NPCs in particular, there's this idea they're not connected to God's source, or like such a tiny connection that they're not aware of it. As you interact with people, a bigger portion of a soul will come into their body to have a conversation with you. And what I really think after watching this video and thinking about it is that, you know, people have varied degrees of connections. So like, you know, there can be the full NPC and the full like embodied soul. And this relates to what Jeffrey Allen was talking about, grounding, like pouring the soul, the spirit into the body. That, you know, you can have varied like degrees of your soul within your body. This was such an interesting idea in video. Yeah, so they're talking about, there's the research and collapsing the wave function, and Dolores Cannon talked about where a place doesn't exist until you go there. So when you focus your attention on something, it becomes a reality. So these NPCs, like background people that are really like cardboard cutouts, they gain consciousness through interaction with you. We are here as big souls, like whole, complete souls, to activate the human consciousness and create a beautiful oversoul for humanity. So oversoul, you'll have to watch other videos to get a sense of what they mean by that. And she said, Honey said, souls can jump in and out of if they want to. And they can jump into an NPC. And some people are even a hologram. Yeah, so NPCs have a very small portion of a soul, a very small spark of consciousness, can become player characters though. And the soul may stick around depending on how comfortable the soul is within the body. They said video games are inspired by God's source. Very interesting, because video games really have this idea of the non-player character. So this kind of relates to what we were talking about earlier in 2012, and souls, advanced souls from the future came and inhabited their past selves, inhabited the bodies of their past selves, which is such a strange and weird concept. But I remember in that time period of like 2014, let's see, I think I was diagnosed with depression in 2014, not 2013. I think maybe I have my years mixed up. I think it happened a year later than what I said earlier. So like this is, we're talking about gaps in memory in the Jeffrey Allen part. Yeah. So I remember we had this like training in terms of, it was just like, that was offered through the health clinic locally. It was like awareness, and you sat there and meditated and just like felt into your body, and I couldn't do it because it was so painful. It was so painful to be in my body. I felt so much pain. And if we're using this paradigm to understand the reality that we're experiencing right now, and I say that I was a soul that came back into my body and all of a sudden was experiencing this like severe clinical depression, like, and I wanted to leave. Like I did not want to live. I did not want to stay in this body at all. That was rough. That was so rough. Like, what's wrong with me? But like, I can resonate with this so much, like not wanting to be in the body. And it's so much better now. So yeah, this was such an interesting idea for me. There's societies that have a lot of groupthink. There's a lot of pressure on people to play into this mold. So there's this environments that are really kind of built for NPCs. But everything is energy. And remember that the human body is a form of a hologram. Your consciousness is immortal. Like with a physical body, you can have a sense of touch and create physical things with a body, but you're in a learning program and you're learning that you don't need to follow all the rules that someone else created. So yes, there's holograms, but like we're a hologram. So like this is where like all these concepts kind of like, we can build them up and then they kind of dissolve too, right? Yeah. And they've started to like go into this other vein. We're not really talking about holograms anymore. But I'm going to continue on with this because this is still relevant to the next part. We are activating the consciousness of the human so it can be its own soul group. The reptilian part of the brain keeps out 90% of sensory information, and as you expand the mind, you are able to experience more. Shadows that have been suppressed come to the surface. starting to see that everything is made out of light and is a beautiful experience. And they're talking about the crystalline body, and it can contain more light than the carbon-based body. So the carbon-based body absorbs light and the crystalline body shines the light. So I added another video on the crystalline body. Although this video doesn't actually talk that much about the crystalline body, I'm just bringing it up because it relates to the other experiences that I had this week that I'm going to describe. So we've got this energetic debris, solidified emotions, holding other people's emotions in your body, and, you know, moving from this carbon-based to crystalline body. We don't know a lot about it, but, you know, there's some foundational things that are happening. Dropping programming about how you're supposed to look. You know, this body's responding, how we're treating it. Clearing cellular memory. Downloading higher levels of our higher selves within the body. And you need to love the body and allow your body to take in that higher self, you know, the crystalline body. Christ, crystal, it's becoming Christ aligned and containing that love within us. Okay, so here we go on to the practicing spiritual gifts. Okay, so this time I did use the sleep mask, and this was yesterday. And here's the challenge, that you can do these kind of practices anytime. But, like, I find this pressure, like, you gotta do this, and I gotta work, I gotta exercise, I gotta do this, and then, I gotta distract myself. I find it hard to actually do this, even though I want to. Like, these were positive experiences that I had this week, but I find it hard to just, like, give myself permission to do them. Okay, so, yeah, like, I shifted awareness, shifted consciousness, where I'm, like, realizing how much I've been trapped in stories about work and other people and family, and in that state, I'm just like, it's ridiculous. Like, wow. Kind of embarrassed. But, you know, and I shifted my, like, awareness, where I'm thinking, like, how much of a person, in terms of other people, am I experiencing is a program versus actually conscious. So I'm, like, releasing blame for others by recognizing they don't have the same level of spirit in their body. And also, our consciousness projects these, like, people or holograms. Like, that's a whole another level of awareness. It's like, there's the paradigm where, you know, you need to be in this space to be able to really think through this. But, you know, so you're not, like, blaming yourself or others for, like, situations that are uncomfortable. Like, if you're outside of that discomfort, then you can start looking at your life and you're like, what did I create within my life from, like, a higher consciousness perspective that's, like, can't feel separation, can't feel pain, that was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this so I can learn this. And today, like, I was walking in the snow and I was like, once I gained that perspective, I was like, you know what, it's cool. It's kind of cool to be able to experience physical reality. Yeah, it's dense. Yeah, it's painful. It's hard. But it's kind of cool to be able to experience it. Now, that's coming from a higher perspective that hasn't experienced it. So when people act unconsciously with us, it can be part of a soul contract to activate stuff within us to heal. So, like, I'm really processing, like, the different elements of my reality here. So a lot of these ideas, this is information that people have channeled through messages. And again, if there's part of an idea that doesn't resonate with you, don't hold on to it. Just let it go. So this helped me to release expectations of other people, and yeah, realizing how other people like can be affected by you and grow in consciousness. So your perception of their ability to grow in consciousness makes a difference. And I have a tendency to assume, that person's not going to change, or like I don't want to put in the effort to imagine them changing. So I'm like, well, okay. Yeah. All these 3D concepts, like worrying about whether someone likes you or not. Like I've been worried about being fired from my job, and like I've kind of shifted perspective. I thought about it as like, oh, you know what? And imagining like you're interacting with people who have this level of programming, and you're removing blame from the equation when you recognize like people are acting out of programming, and that can relieve frustrations with interactions with people. So this is like a paradigm shift that I've been playing around with. Yeah, if someone possesses a soul, but the soul isn't fully integrated into the body, like you can interact with their higher self directly on an energetic level. And so I've been thinking about, maybe your manifested person, it's not in this timeline. So don't go looking for them. Just jump to the next timeline and find them there. That's the thought that I've been having. Yeah, so like releasing expectations about the physical person. Like you don't know how much of their soul is embodied. And I realized, wow, like I'm assuming there's consciousness present in a body of a person that I'm interacting with, when maybe there isn't. Maybe it's going to take more of my interaction with them to help them gain that level of consciousness. But like you can never pressure or force things. Yeah, so I was feeling ridiculous about believing all these thoughts generated from fear, lack, insecurity, security-seeking survival patterns. And a lot of it's my own faulty projection and perception. There's no one hurting me. And I can already be living in a different reality than the people living around me. And there's this aspect of where I'm attributing consciousness to others within my own mind, which is a projection of my own consciousness. Like, so there's these different layers. Yeah, so like, what's real? Like whatever you're experiencing as real is you shining the light of consciousness onto it, which makes it real. And whatever you are experiencing as truth is truth. So truth is not a construct of the mind. Like it's an awareness that's describing an experience. And then there's this question, like, why didn't I know any of this sooner? There's this veil of uncertainty that helps foster discipline in controlling the mind and emotions. So when your manifestation power increases, you need to be able to focus your mind only on what you want, not what you don't want. So you want to react in an emotionally neutral way to what you don't want and positively to what you do want. Yeah, treat negative things as a hologram. Like, don't react to them because they are illusory, so they don't matter. You know they aren't true. So, like, this is the energy of, like, jumping to the next timeline, where it's like, it's not true in the next timeline, so I'm not accepting it as true here. So, still act in integrity to your ethics. But recognize that your focus affects how timelines shift and what timeline you are on. So a lot of this was like coming through in this process. And like this is a lot of how like that claircognizance works. So now I'm describing my experience. Like when I put on the sleep mask and I was laying in bed. So I was seeing kind of like, as soon as I put the sleep mask on, I was seeing kind of like waves of energy in the dark, like, and there's just like tiny bits of light, like you're looking into the water. It's almost like if you have water that's like black and there's like a tiny bit of light shining through it, kind of like that, maybe. And there's like ripples. Yeah, so there's this level of separation from attachment and connection to reality. So I felt this like detachment about the stories about who I am. And the mask helped a lot with that. It was like a sleeping mask, and it just blocks out the light, and it's not touching your eyeballs. And so after a while, I couldn't tell whether my eyes are open or closed. I think they eventually closed because I was sleepy. That's always what happens, like I was sleepy. Yeah. And I was feeling like this intense energy pulsing throughout my body. Like there wasn't just energy in the root chakra this time. Yeah, so I was feeling like these 3 different layers of the visual field. So immediately, like you can feel like this regular vision, which feels like this IMAX dome theater, which feels like further out in front of me, projected outwards a bit in front of the eyes. And then there's this layer of a movie screen, which feels closer to the eyes. And this arrives once you relax more. And then there's like kind of the dream layer where you've like sunk back deeper into consciousness and you've relaxed more. So I was kind of like feeling the difference here, like kind of differentiating like how images arise, and you have more conscious control over like this regular vision, like that's more closely connected to the structure of reality. All right, dreams don't always hold to any kind of structure of reality. Yeah, so the deeper you sink into consciousness, the less control you feel, like that mind interference. But you still need to hold some kind of connection to your conscious mind. And I felt an enhanced awareness of my body and other senses. So I kind of released trying to get some information visually because I was feeling a lot through my other senses. And it felt really cool. Yeah, I just released any question or expectation and just felt what was there. And I had an image of mountains come in and out, and I didn't interpret anything from it. It felt like a warm-up. Like clairvoyance is not my dominant skill, and it's very apparent here. Yeah, I did get, like, the idea of love has been on my mind. I did get an image of the outline of a man and a woman, kind of like paper cutouts or like dolls. And they're connected at the heart, like their bodies are physically connected at the heart. And I felt this beautiful heightened sense of divine love, just like free from lust or expectation. There's just this pure love, respect, connection, and adoration. So like I had this image, but like I mostly felt it in my body. Yeah, and it's just like, it felt free from anxiety about being hurt by that person. And within that like kind of consciousness, it's not even conceivable. And it felt like there's this veil between unity consciousness and separation consciousness that plays out in this like dynamic of love, where like you can access both. Like you can go into one and then go into the other, but like you can't access them at the same time. And this is something, like, if you notice, something that we mentioned in the prior video, like at the very beginning, like that separation of the splitting of the two worlds, talking about these different frequencies. Yeah, it's like when you heal yourself, you can remember painful experiences, but you can no longer access like how that felt. So it's so interesting. And I was feeling like this higher level of love. Like you can remember the idea of someone else rejecting you, but you can't feel that feeling of rejection and can't imagine someone rejecting you. So wild. I can connect back to that feeling with like different triggers in my life, but in that space, lying on my bed with the sleep mask, I could feel that. Oh, wow, it was just so powerful. Yeah, so like I sometimes use tarot to give myself some self-guidance, and there's been this message of new love coming in for me, and you're going to be very happy. And I had a lot of resistance against that idea, like, no, it's not happening. I'm not going to be happy. I'm just so upset and miserable. But I can see that now. And like, yeah, I can see that. You know, oh, like we're shifting into this higher level of consciousness, which gives this freedom for like love from a whole state of being, not this like kind of fractured state of being. Like, oh, okay, so that was one aspect that was just so beautiful that I experienced. Okay, so the other aspect was this crystalline body. So I was looking at my hand. So I'm laying on my bed with my eyes are maybe open, maybe closed, I don't know. I'm wearing the sleep mask. I'm in this state. So I'm viewing my hand within my mind and seeing it as crystalline. So kind of like remote viewing, when we were talking about that earlier. And your mind makes images of the closest thing you can represent it as. So I imagine it as like blue triangles connected with like white lines of light and in this like 3D structure. Yeah, and then I also like was feeling my body and kind of like feeling or seeing it as crystalline. So, but it's like, how can you be feeling in your body and then also see your body? But that's what it felt like. And I feel like I was closer to the dream state at this point, because like it felt like projection if we want to categorize it. But it was almost like I was seeing my body as if it was like remote viewing or seeing it on a screen, but what didn't feel like as being a screen. It felt like being in the body. So that was interesting. And so I was kind of like thinking about this concept and also encouraging, and it just like was right there. So this is like, you know, this is the shift where like your body can be shifting and you can help the process along. Yeah, I was in this state of pure joy and happiness. And I looked at my work computer later and I was able to trigger that lower level of consciousness. Yeah, so I was talking about this veil, and you can go back and revisit the higher level consciousness. And I just feel like, you know, I can go back into this state and have this capacity for healing. So imagining myself like healing my body, healing like different pain in my body. So there's this awareness for that. Yeah. So this is the end. But I just feel like this hope for the future, and I could have never imagined, you know, coming to this point and like being in this space and discovering these new things. And sometimes it's better if you don't know what's going to happen, because your conscious awareness of it happening can affect how it happens, and the mind can interfere and make it slower and more painful than it needs to be. And so I was like, oh, why was I kept in the dark about this? But, you know, sometimes it's better for it to just happen. Okay. Here we are at the end. Oh, made it through it. Oh. Yeah, I was trying to talk quite quickly to get through that because I felt bad about being so long tonight. It's so interesting, like I feel this rush when I do the live, and then afterwards I just like plummet, my energy just like drops. But I usually go skiing beforehand, so that might contribute to it. I'm like tired, and then I get this rush of adrenaline to do the live, and then I just like I can't function afterwards. Oh, like, yeah, remembering like last week and the week before, like I was having thoughts about like, you know, the things I want to manifest, the relationship, the money, the house. And I was like, it's not happening, it's not possible, and just like so negative. And now I'm back to where I'm like, it's absolutely possible. And I'm giving up figuring out how. I'm just like, I want to jump to a timeline where everything's just already taken care of. Like, I don't even know if that's possible, but I just want to do it. That would be so crazy. You jump to a timeline and you're like, whose house is this that I'm in? It's my house? Like, who's this person in this house with me? Oh, it's my partner? What? That would be so disconcerting. That would be so weird. Like, maybe you don't want that, but I think, maybe you can create like some situations where that happens. Like other people's problems. Like, I want my mom's issues to be taken care of. Like, jump into a timeline where that's all taken care of and I don't need to worry about that. Like, maybe you do want to sort through your own issues. Yeah, so this is the last chance for any questions or anything you want to share or add. Lots that we discussed here. Lots to process and take in, and for me to feel insecure about being judged is too woo-woo. But no, it's this is a space for the right people to come and join and be part of. Yeah, there's a bit of a lag, so I'm just checking and seeing if there's any more comments. Yeah, so continue to have love and compassion for yourself, because we're all working through our lives on a daily basis. And it's the small things that are adding up and making a difference. And we're moving along here in trust. And trusting that things are happening to help us along and to create an amazing life for us and to have all these beautiful things emerge. Like, aren't you glad that whatever challenges that you've made it through, that you've made it to this point? That there's beauty that we can find here, and we can appreciate, this life experience for what it's offering us. Okay, I don't see any more comments yet, so I am going to end the live stream. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and watching. And yeah, it's going to be so interesting to see what emerges from here. Bye.